The right side of the equation for what covers the lifestyle expenses is you have that investment income plus this flexible income, this flexible work. That's the time freedom formula. So it's bringing together money that you've saved and the work that you do in order to cover your lifestyle.
Welcome to Truly Passive Income. I'm Neil Henderson.
And I'm Clint Harris. And today's guest is Brian Herriot. He's an author, financial advisor, and coach who helps entrepreneurs achieve what he calls time freedom, designing work around life on your terms. After nailing his time freedom formula in 2023, Brian took a 6-month sabbatical and now takes every summer off while still running his business. Brian's on a mission to help others do the same. Brian Herriot, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thanks so much for having me.
Excellent. Thank you for making time for this. See that? See what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there. Yeah.
Brian, for those that don't know about you, tell us a little bit about your background and how you found your way into this world in terms of focusing on time freedom.
Sure. So my name is Brian Herriot. I'm a Midwestern guy, born and raised in Wisconsin. I currently live in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. I am a consultant turned financial advisor. Yeah, turned speaker author. How about that? We'll put it there. I've worked for, obviously many years, saved my money, built some passive streams of income, and got to a point and a realization in 2023 where even though I wasn't fully financially independent, I couldn't just, stop working forever. I got to a point where I could really get selective about how I was spending my time. I had been going to the Northwoods of Wisconsin ever since I was a little kid, where my grandparents had a cabin, and that's always been a dream of mine and my wife's. And so we started in 2023. I started taking the summers off, and we spend our time there and rest and reflect and actually think bigger about the businesses that I am a part of. And then I come back. Our son is 14, so he's a freshman in high school. And then we come back and we do our, normal standard work through the rest of the year, and then look forward to the next summer. And so that's kind of the life that I've lived. I've told a few people about it, and many more people became interested. And so now I decided to write about it, and I speak about it as well.
As Americans, that's such a foreign concept to us of taking a long summer vacation. I mean, Europeans get eight weeks of vacation a year, and they have to use it or lose it. And so they do. You go to Europe in August, a lot of times everything's shut down. And, I always say, you don't really start to relax into a vacation until about 3 weeks in. And most Americans are not going to take a vacation longer than a week their entire life, outside of when they were a kid and they got summer vacations. So I'm curious, your experience in the before you started taking these long trips versus now, how that shifted your whole mindset.
Yeah. And so I have this concept that I write about in the book called seasonal schedules. And it's something that, you pretty much have to own your own business to be able to drive toward that, because if you're working at Google or wherever, they're not going to let you take the summer off. But there's a way to restructure your work and the support that you rely on to allow you to take these breaks. As I presented that, to a lot of early readers, a lot of the questions was, well, I don't know, how do I get there? Right? I can't just take 3 or 4 months off. And so actually one of the techniques is called Take Your European Vacation, which made me think of that when you brought that up, where you can start with 4 weeks, right? Like the month of August, because if you look at most businesses that you run, that, if you ever have an emergency and you need to tend to a family member that's severely sick or injured or in an accident, your business can survive for 4 weeks. 4 months is slightly different. And so, starting there is a good way to kind of experience what this is like. For me, my personal story is that back when I was in 1999, my then girlfriend, now wife, had a double lung transplant. And it was a huge thing for us at that time. We didn't know what the outcome would be. We didn't know, is this good for 1 year, 3 years? That's how long they kept the records, right? But she's still doing great, which is wonderful. But ever since I was 23 years old at the time, I was always struggling with this. how much do you live for now? How much do you save for the future? Because you just didn't know. We kind of had that accelerated. I think most people deal with that, especially as they hit middle career. But I was experiencing this much earlier in life. So I've had a lot more time to think about it. But I haven't been able to do it up until I got to a point where, you have to rely on the money that you have saved. You have to align the work in such a way and put those things together to make it work. And it is not traditional. And so you're also fighting against common convention as you're going through this to make it work.
So many people, wouldn't think about time freedom as, oh, I don't have to work. I'm going to go sit on a beach and be lazy or whatever. And it's amazing to me, like the stories that really resonate as we continue our like relentless pursuit of education about time freedom, location independence, and things of that nature. The stories that resonate is not the people that had freedom of time so they could be lazy. It's freedom of time so that they could pour into their family, pour into their community, take care of a loved one, be there for somebody that really needed them, be available for support during a really tough time. So in my mind, I think people would just think of all the fun things that they would do at that time. And that's the wrong perspective, in my opinion. You really need to think about what's really precious, like what's really, really precious and important, and time with your loved ones, time with your son. Like that's such a better use of time than just sitting on a beach somewhere. So
I agree.
I love
And
that.
I also would say that, sometimes when I talk about time freedom, people will think, well, maybe you've kind of achieved this certain amount of success so far and you're really ready to pull back. There's a series of books about having achieved enough. I worry about that because I still have very big goals in life. I want to do some cool, big things, but I also want to do it and have my summers off. So I don't think I'm pulling back or only gonna spend time with family or things like that. I'm certainly not going to just, sip my ties. I mean, if you have all the time off in the world, that doesn't become fun anymore because then it becomes part of the routine. And that's why this whole seasonal thing is great. And one of the unexpected things about going between Wisconsin and San Francisco is that twice a year you get to say goodbye to your friends and hello to new friends. And it's this like, it's just not boring anymore because there's always change happening and you kind of move with the seasons. And then it makes the time that you spend in those places that much more valuable. I'm sad to leave Wisconsin in the summer. I really am. But then I'm really excited to get back home to California. And then the same thing happens in the flip.
Let me ask a personal question. To me, it seems like what a great way to kind of recharge, focus. I'm ADHD. So one thing that's benefited me recently is like I've started implementing quiet time and honestly, like it needs to be over an hour for it to really start helping me. But like it takes me a long time to get my brain just to slow down and stop with the to-do list to try to reframe my goals for the day, my goals for the week. I can only imagine having a couple months off after that. What is that like when you're going back into working full time? Like, do you feel like you're getting more out of yourself? Is like, okay, now it's time. I've had time to think about the framework of what this needs to look like. Now it's time to go do it. What's that like, turning it off and turning it on? Is it hard to turn it off? Is it hard to turn it back on? Or do you find yourself energized and ready to jump in?
I wasn't sure the first summer when I did this, right? And so I've noticed that it's kind of it happens naturally if you give it enough time. And so that first summer that I took off, I actually took off longer. I did take another 3 months and I was so ready by the end of that 6 months to get back, like so ready. And I realized that, okay, 6 months is, I can't do like 6 months on, 6 months off. I could never, I'd like to be productive, I guess. I don't know if that's upbringing or whatever. And you need a month to pull out of the intensity, right? And so it's, I think it's different for different people. But if I had to guess, most people, it would be around that 2-3 month period where to come out and then be able to come back in and be ready. So it's absolutely rejuvenating 100%. I haven't felt burnout in a while, and I feel a little guilty about that because I know so many of us do. And I'm fortunate, right? I'm fortunate that I've been able to figure this out. And that's why I want more people to do this. And that's why I'm trying to spread the message.
So I feel like your time freedom formula for you seems like it really came into focus in 2023. I've heard you talk about that. And now you have this core idea. I hope I'm not oversimplifying this, but this core idea of a lifestyle freedom formula. where you're combining flexible income, working part of the year, and investment income to kind of cover the gaps. Can you walk us through those three pieces together and how they're supporting that lifestyle, and why is that formula so powerful?
Yeah, and I think the passive income piece of it comes in here hugely. So, the way I describe the time freedom formula is to start with the financial freedom formula, which isn't always called that, but many people refer to it as the 4% rule. So, the idea that if you're going to live as a financially free person, you need to have your living expenses covered by 4% of whatever you've saved up, right? The problem is that when you do that math, that number is so high. It's this insurmountable savings mountain that you have to build up to. And that's what takes till 65. And that's why you have to do it that way. What I had realized is that if you could combine that income that you could draw off of the savings that you've, accumulated with some sort of other flexible income, be it flexible work or other passive income, and you can and so then on the right side of the equation for what covers the lifestyle expenses is you have that investment income plus this flexible income, this flexible work. That's the time freedom formula. So it's bringing together money that you've saved and the work that you do in order to cover your lifestyle. Now that's a 1-year look, right? And you need to have confidence to live this way. So I built a time freedom calculator that allows you to project that into the future just so that you don't feel, so you feel as though you're comfortable not going to run out of money. But it is a simple concept. It's just combining the two. And so what I'm basically telling you is if you want the time freedom formula to work, let's say you couldn't save any money, you just need to work forever, never retire, which sounds crazy. But I would argue if you could create this work that you absolutely love, that you could do 20 hours a week and you get all your social connections and you get your status from it and all that stuff, like I would work it forever, And so that's what I'm trying to do is continue to mess with the type of work that I do to make sure that it's always the work that I absolutely love. Because then when you feel like you can work that until you're 80 years old, oh, that's really freeing. You could take a year off. You don't have to have so much reliance on what happens in the markets, and while you're kind of doing that till you're 80, you're slowly building these smaller passive income streams and everything's kind of working together to help stabilize, any sort of inconsistent income that you have. It's just I think it's a different way of looking at things.
So let me sort of put it into my words. So I think I'm understanding it correctly. Most people, when they're thinking about a traditional retirement, like you said, they're thinking about the 4% rule. I'm going to build up a nest egg to cover, and I'm going to draw 4% of it annually. So essentially, what you need to do is figure out how to build a nest egg 25 times what you think your annual living expenses are going to be, what you want to live. And are you talking about kind of creating a separate bucket for a sort of a short-term income coverage for those sort of extended vacations? I don't need to cover an entire year. All I need to cover is the 3 months that we're going to go off to Wisconsin for the summer. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. And it's also allowing you, I'm actually advocating for drawing on the money that you've saved a lot earlier in life. So simple numbers, it takes $100,000 that you live off each year and you've saved up, 500 grand. I don't know. So you can pull 20,000. So your difference is 80,000. That's actually not that much. Is there a way that you can come up with $80,000 either through, net rental incomes or work that you do? Maybe you do independent consulting for half the year and you could come up with that, or, it's kind of filling the gap. And then if you're pursuing this work that you really love, you'll probably work more anyway and you'll earn more than the 80,000. And so then you can grow that other bucket, which then the 20,000 becomes a little bit higher, but it's just constant mix of things. And so you do need a calculator to kind of figure out and model what this would look like in the future. And there's no, this calculator that I've created, it's not rocket science. It's just a retirement calculator where the retirement age is much earlier and you have the ability to put work after it, right? And that's the combination. And you can figure out how long and for how long and how much and all of those sorts of things.
Moving the goalpost to, do what my granddad, one of the last things he ever told me was like, whatever you want to do it when you're young. kind of moving the goalposts and creating opportunity to start doing some of those things earlier. I love that. Let me ask you this. In your coaching, you talk about different money personalities. You mentioned managers, minimizers, and makers. Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Yeah. So this is great. Like for the longest time in my life, I just thought everybody viewed money the same way that I did. And it wasn't until I started doing some financial advising work, not that long ago. I always thought you earn your money, you get good value out of it, you save what you can. That is what I call the money manager. And those people focus on that investment part of the time freedom formula. But there are other types out there. So my son, he's got ADHD. He cannot save for the life of him, right? Like we tried the 3-jar thing when, your kids are small and he somehow convinced me that he should spend it all. Like he is just this master salesman and negotiator. He sold our car when he was 6 years old. Anyway, he is what I call a money maker. And that's the true financial independent. Like if you just have the ability to make money, entrepreneurial types, salesman types, that's a money maker. That person is kind of aligned with that flexible income part of the equation. And then you've got your money minimizers, people who I didn't actually believe this to be the case until I met some of them where, if they're getting an inheritance, they don't really want it because they didn't have anything to do with it. They're just not a big into they're not all bought up in money. So those folks, need to look at the lifestyle expenses side and make sure that you're controlling how much you spend. But my idea is that you've got this time freedom formula based on your natural money personality or money strengths. You kind of align with the one that should work best for you. And I mean, if you're good at 2 of them, you're going to be wildly successful, in this model. But, people are influenced by things from their childhood, like if your dad's business was always booming and busting, that's going to have a huge impact on how you view money later in life. That's very different from somebody else. So you want to lean into what your strength is in order to make the time freedom formula work for you.
My son, he's 11 years old. He's also got ADHD. I've got a partner that's got ADHD. It's my lot in life. And it's so interesting to watching him. What he needs are those dopamine hits from something new. Like he always wants to buy something and he especially loves like something like opening a Pokemon card packet. Oh, he loves that because it's just something new and there's a mystery and he opens it and then it's gone and the thrill is gone. So, but he always needs that new input. And so we're always kind of looking for ways to redirect that off of something that's not going to cost us money. As the father of another ADHD kid, how do you talk to him about money?
So my son is 14 now, and we've been through that, and it is so dangerous these days because they have the Roblox thing that's only available until the end of the day today, and it's just like feeding into that intense desire, and so I do not have all the answers for how to do this. Although I will say that I've come in the work that I've done in the reading that I've done on this topic. As an adult, he needs to find the most expensive thing that he can sell and charge a commission on it because that's going to be his ticket to success in life. And then he is going to have to agree to carving 25 to 50% of that money off and giving it to me to hold on to for him so that he doesn't have access to it. I don't think there's any other way. Well, we could talk a lot about ADHD in school and like how we just want to get them through with the confidence to, because school isn't really set up for ADHD kids. But boy, you can be super darn successful as an adult if you have ADHD, So, but anyway, that's what I know with 3 more years of experience than you.
Yeah.
Well, now we're getting into the real stuff. I mean, my boys are 6 and 2, and I'm coming down the pipeline dealing with the same issues that you guys are, and yeah, same thing. It's one of those things, like, honestly, investing in real estate in my early 20s was one of the best things about it for me was not that they were great deals, is that it locked the money up for a long time and I couldn't touch it. And same thing with retirement. It's like, that's good for me. It helps me.
That's a really good point. Yes, I love that.
I love that. Well, let me ask you this, Brian. We got a question that we ask all of our guests that I want to hear, before we get into the question that we're going to ask about a book that you might recommend to other people, I want to hear more about your book and tell us about what the process was like writing it. And I'm curious if you used your time freedom to accomplish that, and what was that process like for you?
Absolutely did. And this is if anybody knows me, this is what I love talking about. So the writing the book process has been incredibly wonderful. I've learned a ton. I got tapped into the right people right away. And I'll just give a plug. AJ Harper is an authorship coach for people that want to write prescriptive nonfiction books. And she has an incredible book. It's not the one I'll recommend later, but her book is called Write a Must Read. And the basic notion of that book is that you could have the best marketing in the world on a book's launch, but that will not make a successful book. A successful book is one that continues to increase in sales because it is a must-read book and people read it, achieve its promise, and tell other people about it. That really resonated with me. It also then, kind of aligns with my whole long game approach to life. So I have been working on this thing for over 2 years at this point, and I'm not over 2 years because it's just off and on. It's been 2 years of dedicated work with early readers and 10 rounds of edits and like all of these sorts of things, because I am so focused on there's a lot of other things at play, but I want to make this thing the best possible book it possibly can be. And then have fun marketing it. I've been able to, because of the time freedom, like you said, be able to spend good dedicated hours, especially during the summer. But also during the rest of the year by getting up at 5 a.m. and spending the first hour and a half of every single day. And it's really fun when you hit the milestones, when you turn it over to the publisher and then you turn over it for the next layer of edits. Like you can see it moving. Like, and at the end of the day, there will be like getting a cover was pretty cool, and seeing the interior design of the pages is pretty cool. So I'm going to be done and have a ready book in the middle of January, and then by then it'll be 8 months to market the heck out of it. And because I'm so proud of it, it'll be easy to market. So it's just, and then, the subtitle of AJ's book about Write a Must Read is called, is Write a book that transforms lives, including your own. That is another thing that I've noticed about this whole effort, is that there's a lot of reflection that goes on when you realize why you believe the things you do. And some of them go all the way back to childhood and experiences. It's been really therapeutic almost in thinking back about why you believe some of these things, and the stories of my wife's lung transplant and, my son selling the car, and like all these things that kind of play a role in why you believe these things. And it all comes together in this book. So it's been a completely enjoyable experience, and I recommend that everybody go through it at some point in their lives, but not write a book in 3 months and push it out the door, because you want to be proud of it.
Well, I've got 2 questions, and I think these will be our last questions before we ask our final question. One is, your son sold your car when he was 6. Did he have your permission?
Was he in it?
We had a garage sale going on where we were selling all of our junk. I couldn't find my kid. I hear the key fob beeping, and I look over, and he's talking to this woman and like having her sit in it and turn the lights on and all this kind of stuff. And what had happened was he had heard us talking about wanting to sell it like a couple weeks prior. And I had made him a promise that I would give him 10% of everything he could help us sell at the garage sale. And then he went to the big ticket item. And sure, like I didn't even know what price I was going to sell. And I told the woman the wrong price. And then she came back from the test drive, and I raised it by $2,000 to $7,000. I think it was a 2009 Corolla. And she's like, yeah, I know. I looked it up too. And she just drove away with it. Like I couldn't believe it. And so I did pay my son, but I did, like you said, I did not give it to him.
Yeah, $700.
Yeah, like the other parents have been like, your kid has a wad of $700 in his little jean pocket. And so I put it away for him in his school account fund. Yeah, and that's how I paid him. He thought that if we got rid of it, we would get a McLaren Senna. Because he's one of those, he loves cars.
Yeah, he needs a high-end sales job.
Exactly. But the funny thing is we got my dad's used 2012 Prius as our replacement car. So
Basically the same thing.
Yeah.
basically the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I have one more selfish question. Clint always asks the selfish questions. Now I get to ask one for a change. I'm curious about the mechanics of your writing process. Are you a sit in front of a computer with staring at a blank page typing? Are you a handwritten, or are you like a dictation?
It's the first one is my method. And it is really just like you have to be really comfortable with the fact that it's going to be an SFD, or the shitty first draft. That's what and just keep writing. Like sometimes you need prompts, like you just need to let it flow. And then it really, I truly do believe that a good book comes from the editing process, because I submitted it to this copy editor and she's like, I love this story. And I'm thinking, well, you should, because I rewrote it 10 times to get it to that, to that level of quality. So, and for me, I think it's also time of day. Like I'm useless at the end of the day. And so that's the first thing that I do. I get up in the morning, grab that cup of coffee, and then go. And it's actually you can get through a bunch of words. It's pretty enjoyable. It's pretty cool.
That's great. I started writing a book. I got 90 something pages in, and I was about Airbnb and the short-term rental properties that we had. And then I realized that that space was changing so rapidly that by the time I was wrapping it up, a lot of the stuff that I'd written about and that we were using was already obsolete. And my ADHD took over, and I saw a squirrel and went off in another direction. But I actually did really enjoy the process, because it makes you really kind of unpack a lot of the thoughts that you've been having that maybe weren't organized, and start to organize that. So I agree with you. It's a process I'm hoping to go through in its entirety at some point, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, pick up AJ Harper's book. It is phenomenal, and it gives you a good perspective on it, a different type of perspective.
Well, I really appreciate that. I'm definitely picking up that book. I listen to most of my books on audio, so I'm going to download that one for sure as soon as we're done here. Besides that, do you have a book that you recommend other than your own, that you find yourself, maybe not a favorite book, doesn't have to be, but a book that you find yourself recommending to friends and colleagues more than others?
Absolutely. And it's the same book that really drove me to write my entire book. And it's a classic one that everyone recommends, but it's Morgan Housel's Psychology of Money. And that chapter 7, right at the beginning, it's called Freedom. And it's like what people really want when they say they want wealth is not wealth. They want the freedom that comes from wealth. And just wonderful storytelling in that book. And then I thought, well, how do you do it? Right. And that's what my book tries to answer. It's how do you do what he talks about in chapter 7? So
I love that.
Love it.
Well, Brian Herriot, thank you so much for joining us. If anybody want to hear more about you or about Time Freedom, what would be the best way for people to connect with you and engage in a meaningful way?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I go to timefreedom.life. And if you get on my email list, you actually can get access to me reading the audio chapters of the book, 8 months before it's even out. And I kind of talk about my process through all of this authorship stuff that I've done as well. So timefreedom.life.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Very much looking forward to the release of your book. And I can't wait to watch your marketing efforts. I'm sure you'll have wild success, especially when it's something you're passionate about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening and watching the Truly Passive Income podcast. If you liked the show, if you think it would be useful for someone else, the greatest compliment that you could give us would be to share the episode. Leave a comment down below or leave us an honest review. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know down below. And remember, with truly passive income comes freedom of time, place, and the freedom to pursue your higher purpose.